I think the track record of predicting the future is horrible. I mean, trend watchers are not worth anything. I mean, I am a trend watcher basically focusing on what's happening today. I think the examples which are coming are really interesting. But we have the most horrible history in predicting the future the right way. Lots of trends did not appear in any way, shape or form. I mean, if you will look at the smartphone, 10 years ago, the smartphone, that was really not a big thing. It was all about, supercomputers and very interesting. And on the other hand, BlackBerry was already big and the iPhone appeared. Nobody had any idea that would influence the world as it is today.
10 years ago, people talked about Internet 2.0. So from having just website, this was going to be an interactive way. And we didn't really know exactly how this would influence society. So it was sort of an abstract concept. People also talked about the Internet of Things. And right now, the Internet of Things is only happening. But that could be as transformative as the Internet 2.0. And by 10 years from now, we probably have a different name for it because no one really talks about Internet 2.0 anymore, or for a long time not anymore.
So, what somebody may have predicted 10 years ago, really probably, if you look at the best predictors are screenwriters in movies. You look at films like Idiocracy, which it's arguably a documentary on the United States, but 490 years off. It all happened in 10 years, not 500 years, it seems. You look to Back to the Future 2, which talked about kind of the future. 2015, they were off by a year. It's really interesting, and really the series Star Trek, starting from the 60s, was actually pushing the boundaries of what society will accept, and in that process invented a lot of technologies that were positive things, that were kind of future looking, and we're seeing a lot of these things happen. The tricorder in Star Trek is really the iPhone we're recording this video on at this point. And really it's the creative people that are thinking about, how would they solve problems that exist around us or solve these inconveniences. Technologists are a lot of times, they're busy working on engineering something and trying to create a product out of it. But if you really have this kind of beginner's mind, design thinking approach to things, as you're really looking around and thinking from the Silicon Valley mindset, which is looking around the world around you and looking at what problems you'd like to solve. So, a lot of predictions were wrong. A lot of polls are wrong. Again, coming back to politics, people can't predict what's going to happen tomorrow, let alone in 10 years consistently. But there are certain trends that happen, and you can kind of see kind of a fuzzy vision of the future, a hopeful vision of the future. And you can see technologies that will develop, maybe we're off by a few years, but certainly within a generation, within 5 to 10 years, a lot of these things become much more clear, and we kind of see where we're headed. So right now, we're here at the end of 2016. We can see that within a year, virtual reality is going to be really mainstream, year and a half maybe. And that's going to change a lot of things. Additive manufacturing is an area that's going to be disrupting things in a major way. Certainly artificial intelligence, at Web Summit, which is still going here in Lisbon, most of the talks were related to artificial intelligence one way or another. It's really becoming a trend, and it's really interesting where that'll take us in the future.
If you look back, maybe for the megatrends I mentioned, I think really the connected vehicles and possibly electrification were the only one that was on the drawing board 10 years ago. Self-driving vehicles, the work was going on, but it wasn't as obvious as now. And even more importantly, the transition from product to services and also the sharing economy wasn't really at all spoken about at that time. I mean, the Uber, the Airbnbs, that has all happened in the very few last years, and that's the main difference when we look back 10 years.
So if we're comparing forecasting with reality and looking back maybe about 10 years ago, one of the things that I think was not so evident 10 years ago, but that 10 years on, we certainly see the implications or the consequences now. was it was about 10 years ago that Facebook launched something that is far bigger, far more global than its original intention. But that also, after 10 years, what we've also seen is that the rise of Facebook, which a lot of people kind of dismissed in terms of their power 10 years ago, some of us did not dismiss it. But I think that some of the warnings that some of us were giving about organizations like Facebook and the potential adverse effects that they can have in society, those are the ones that 10 years on we're finally starting to see that it's not always just a good thing.